Oye, Yolota. We're going to take a look at another common function that may have broad applications in our particular scenarios. This time we're going to take a look at the count function and the count-if functions. So one of the examples where I use this kind of often is whenever the scores are released for a given round. I'll usually put those into a spreadsheet. And some of the teams don't necessarily participate in all the rounds, especially in practice rounds where sometimes some teams decide that, hey, the score doesn't matter, so we won't bother actually trying to meet to do it. I don't think that that's a good approach myself, but hey, they get to make their own choices. So in this case, a lot of times we've got maybe a bunch of teams that are actually participating at some point in the season, but it's nice to know how many teams participated in any of the individual rounds. Well, when we've got the scores, when I write them out, a lot of times it ends up something like this, where I have team 1 up through 20. In reality, they usually have a couple hundred, so this is a much bigger list. But you'll have like team 1 has a score, but team 2 and team 3 didn't participate. 7 and 8 didn't participate. You've got little holes that kind of crop up here and there. And so one of the things that could be useful is to know how many are actually participating in a given round. Well, that's where we can introduce the count function. So I'm going to type in that we're going to look at the count function. I'm going to do equals and write out count because that is the function. And the spreadsheet is reading my mind, but I can go and drag along this. I want it to go all the way down through all of the teams that I've got, so I'm going to highlight all of those. Now, by default, the count function will just count if there's something there and ignore it if nothing is there. Well, that way it'll ignore any team that didn't have a score of some kind. So I can hit this, and out of the 20 teams that I have listed here, 11 of them actually participated in this round having a score of some kind. Now, that's very useful, but it could also be useful for me to try and get a little bit more precise. Count if. Another thing that I find interesting is to try and identify how many teams either had a very tough time with the scenario, or, more accurately, how many teams had issues actually submitting their VDFs properly. And a lot of times you can tell a team that most likely had trouble submitting their VDF because their score will be less than 20, because the academic quiz is worth 20, and it will be a nice round, even integer number. Especially with STK, you're going to likely end up with a bunch of decimal places. So in this case, we could get an idea of how many teams either did very badly or didn't successfully submit their VDF by doing a count if. Now, count if is a combination of the count function. It's going to count something, but it will count it if it meets a certain criteria, just like an if function. Except in this case, it's an if function that says, if true, count this. If not, ignore it. So it makes it a little bit easier in some regards. Okay, the first thing that we need to give this function is the range. In other words, what numbers I want it to look at. Well, I want it to look at all the scores. Then I hit comma, it goes over and it says the criterion, which is the fancy term for, okay, what's my deciding point? What am I looking for? In this case, for a couple of reasons to make it work right, most of the spreadsheets work this way, you need to treat it almost like text. We're going to start off with a quotation mark, and then we want greater than 20. I'm going to assume that any team that has a score that is lower than 20, there's a decent chance that either they didn't successfully submit their VDF or they had a very, very hard time on it. So I'm going to have it count this if the score is below 20. Okay, well now it immediately returned that there are 7 scores that are below that. You could also go in and if you're told, let's see, that the average was whatever it was, we could also go through and we could calculate up the average on that, but let's say that the average was, say, 40. We could go through and we could do a count if and see how many teams did better than the average. And we could do this and we could say, okay, greater than 40. And that's, once again, 7. Apparently, every one of the things that I had put in that wasn't a very small number was greater than 40. Fine, you know what? I'm going to change this to 90. Great. There were only 2 that were greater than 90. We got 92.1 and 102.3. So here's where you can go in and do different ways of counting up things and get an idea of how many instances are at or above a given number. All right. Until next time.